Got a great question today that I love to help people with when they start on their fitness journey, and that's how often should I weigh myself? It comes up really often because anybody who wants to lose weight likes to know how their progress is going, but sometimes there are some methods of weighing yourself that can be counterintuitive. If you're like me or anybody who's been through any fitness journey at any time, sometimes you'll see that your weight doesn't always just go straight down. Unfortunately, it's not just this nice little linear pattern, is it? And sometimes our weight will jump and fluctuate, and hopefully over time it's trending downwards. But today I want to answer the question for people of how often should you weigh yourself? Should you look at your results to A, know that you're on track, but B, kind of not have any opportunity to self-sabotage or demotivate yourself in seeing some results that are easily explainable, but hard to see if all we're looking at is the scale number. Now, the first thing I want people to understand is that your weight will fluctuate and it will move. If you pick a point from where your weight is about right now, it's kind of normal for that to fluctuate plus or minus about 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos if you're a little bit heavier person, either side of that point. And so weight fluctuations are a natural part of life. And when we have that little sort of 3 to 4 kilo range at times, if we weighed ourselves at any one time throughout the week, we could very easily get a different result. If I weigh myself tonight as an example, I might be 92 kilos, weigh myself in the morning, I might be 90. It doesn't mean that I've lost 2 kilos of fat. Your weight will change based on certain circumstances, right? You've got things like your carbohydrate intake, the volume of food that you've eaten, when you last went to the toilet. For ladies that have their cycle, that will influence their weight as well. And so we get all these fluctuations and changes, and it just means if we're weighing ourselves too often, we can kind of get caught, because sometimes you might have weighed yourself. Let's say you've done a lot of hard work for the week, right? You're really feeling great, you've done a heap of sessions, you've challenged yourself, you've got your nutrition right, you've ticked all the boxes. And let's say at the start of the week, you weighed yourself at a low point. Let's say your weight normally is 90, you weighed yourself, you just happen to be 89, right? And then we go through the week, and let's say maybe you've lost 0.5 kilo, which is a normal amount to sort of have lost in a weight loss journey. It's a good amount to have lost across the space of a week, right? Let's say we weighed you at the low point of that cycle, we're then weighing you at the high point later due to different factors, changes, like I mentioned before, those little circumstances. And all of a sudden, even though we have lost body fat and that part of your weight has gone down, your overall weight can be higher if we're going to weigh in quick succession. And so that can leave people feeling really frustrated, especially when you're like, I have ticked all these boxes, I've done everything that I could do. It has left me feeling time and time again, before I knew any better, it left me feeling really disappointed, really frustrated, because I was like, I'm killing this, you know, I'm putting in all this effort, I'm not seeing any results on the scales, and it's really can be disheartening. It's not the case, right? Because if we had more data, if we had more evidence, we could look at it objectively, but it can really crush your soul, and that can be the catalyst that sort of sends you off the edge and kind of kicks you off the wagon with any fitness journey. So the question then really becomes for us, like, how do we solve this problem? You'll get some people who suggest, look, don't weigh yourself at all. Just don't look, it doesn't matter. You should look how you kind of are looking and feeling in the mirror, judge it based on your clothes sizes, get away from the scales completely. And whilst I understand where they're coming from, I don't think that that's the best approach, because the scales, even though they might not tell us everything, they will give us some evidence. And if we collect that with all these other points of data to know how we're tracking, then it becomes the fact that yes, the scales on their own are limited, but if we use them as part of this wider process, well, hey, they can actually be quite useful for us. And so what would I recommend for people? I would recommend that they weigh themselves once every 4 weeks at the very most, because people can get overly obsessed with their weight. And take it like this, if you know that you are doing the sessions that you need to do, your trainer has helped you with your nutrition, that everything is set up, you're building great habits, and you are physically progressing and seeing other non-scale victories like your clothes sizes dropping, strangers and friends and family giving you compliments, looking and just feeling better, right? You know that it's happening and you know that it's going in the right direction. So what does the number really matter anyway? If we're checking it regularly and assessing it as a neutral standpoint, right, where we can see all the data and all the breakdown, it's helpful to know that we're moving in the right direction. If we have all those habits set up and you've had someone help you do that, you know that we're going to be moving in the right direction. There's other ways to tell, right? And so that's why I recommend once every 4 weeks. It's a long enough time frame, especially for women with their cycle, that you're going to get very similar, if not the same circumstances as best you can. Like I said, things that fluctuate it is things like hormones, things like your water intake, things like the amount of food that you've eaten in the last 24 hours, when you last went to the toilet. And so each 4 weeks, if we're trying to then replicate those circumstances, weigh ourselves at the same time of the day, you know, after we've eaten, before we've eaten, like whatever the circumstances were, let's do that again. And so it kind of takes a bit of that guesswork out of it. And in terms of the cycle, right, over 4 weeks of weight loss, you might see your total weight. If we drew a line through it, it might look like this, but those bumps and ups and downs, they'll kind of cut that line as well. And if you're just unlucky enough to weigh at one of those high points that we talked about before, it can be very disgruntling. That 4 weeks leaves us far less chance of that happening, because over that amount of time, if we've been getting everything right, your weight will be trending downwards. So for us, that for me is the best solution that we can offer is don't be afraid of your weight. You need to have a healthy relationship with it. Just as you can get far too obsessed with it, right? I don't believe that the best way is to just completely ignore it, but use it as part of a wider scheme and use it well. Don't set yourself up for failure by getting on those scales every day. So that's the recommendation for how often you should weigh yourself. The last thing that I would recommend is having somebody who can help you break that weigh-in down, because they're going to help you look at the data objectively. Sometimes your weight will fluctuate and it may move around, and we need to consider a lot of different things. And so having a trainer there with you who's not going to get so emotional about it, because on a personal journey like this, there's a bit of weight behind things, and sometimes if you're anything like me in the past, you don't get the result you thought you wanted, or maybe it didn't quite live up to your expectations. It's really easy to feel like just throwing in the towel. Having somebody there can help you break down the data and help you move forward in a constructive way is the last piece of advice that I give people. Because you need to understand that even after that weigh-in, guess what? We've got to still keep training. You've got the rest of your life to do this. So whether it's good, bad, or ugly, hey, we've got to show up, we've got to keep training tomorrow if we really want to make this a lifestyle.